Dear learners, welcome to online class 10 organized by Afroz Khan Model School. On previous days, I gave you the information of completing sentence, how you can complete a sentence. And at that time, I have told you, you should be very much careful about some grammatical items. Today, I am going to give you some information about transformation. Most of the students requested me to give some information about transformation from simple, complex and compound. And I have noticed that though you have been learning, you have been getting information about simple, complex and compound sentence and about the rules of these sentences, how can you transform these sentences, but till now you are not able to make 100% mark, to get 100% mark on transformation. I don't know why, but you are very much familiar about these sentences and you have been learning these sentences from class 9. Today I am going to start transformation on simple, complex and compound. All of you know that what is a simple sentence. Simple sentence is just like a principal clause, and you know what is clause. Clause, that means clause, if you want to know about clause, then a clause contains a subject, a finite verb and an object. Subject, finite verb and object. Finite verb means that type of verb by which I can identify the tense. The form of finite verb can be changed according to tense and subject, and I can identify the tense by following the finite verb. And if a finite verb is in a part of sentence, then it will be called a clause. And all of you know that there are three types of clauses. What is this? Principal clause. Principal clause. I am giving you the primary stages of simple, complex and compound, and for understanding simple, complex and compound, you need to know, you need to get the information about clauses. Principal clause, and the other name of this clause is independent clause. Independent clause. This clause has one subject and one finite verb, and it can express its meaning without the help, without taking help from other subject or verb. It can express its meaning fully. How? That is, I am teaching English. I am teaching English. Here you can see that one subject and one finite verb, and this finite verb indicates that this sentence is in present continuous. Identify by following, by observing, by the verb of the sentence, that it is in present continuous tense, and there is one subject and one object, and it can express its meaning independently. It needs not from other subject or verb. So it is principal clause. So what is principal clause? The clause which has one subject and one finite verb and can express its meaning independently. And for that reason, it is called independent clause also. The other type of clause is subordinate clause. Subordinate clause. Subordinate clause. of this clause is dependent clause. Dependent clause. Watch the board very much carefully and try to understand my speech. Instruction about simple, complex and compound. First, subordinate clause. And the other name of this clause is dependent clause. Why? It has also a subject, also a finite verb, but it cannot do no other thing. You have attraction, you have happened. What will be happen if you come here? So this subject and this finite verb cannot express the meaning of the fully without using another clause. If you come, I will help you. I will help. Then help. This clause is helping that clause to express its meaning. Earn. He can do everything by his own self. But you are not able to do everything by you need the help of your family. You are the subordinate. You are the subordinate clause. But your father is the principal clause. So if you want to depend on others, the person on whom you are depending, he should be principal. A dependent clause cannot get the load of, so it is not simple sentence. It is not principal clause. It is the principal clause. It is subordinate clause. Just follow what is principal and what is subordinate. A principal clause expresses its meaning fully, but a subordinate cannot express its meaning without the help of other clause. I don't need to give you information about the coordinating clause. Coordinating clause is also another clause. This clause, there are two clauses combined to make a coordinate clause. Dears, now I am going to give you some information about simple, complex, compound. Simple sentence. Yogic padarthota ki. What is compound thing? All of you know what is compound. A compound substance is by using two or three simple, three or three basic substance. Okay? Compound substance can be made with the use of three basic substances. Now, compound sentence, you have know the hydrogen, the basic thing. Oxygen is another basic thing. It is a principal clause. Hydrogen can express its meaning alone. So in a compound sentence, you may have two or three clauses, but A will be an independent clause. So there are two principal clauses. Sentence, which is the subordinate clause, and identify. Then you should take care about the connectors. In principal clause, all the coordinating conjunction, all the conjunctions will be coordinating conjunctions. Okay? And otherwise, yet, etc. will be in compound sentence. Except these connectors, conjunctions, all the conjunctions, just like since, as, when, so that, though, although, all relative pronouns will be seen in a complex sentence. Now, dears, I am going to give you the rules of transforming a complex sentence to compound and simple. So the topic is complex to compound to simple. Okay? You know what is complex sentence? It has one principal clause and one subordinate clause that will be combined with the use of as, when, so that, in order that, though, although, if, unless, etc. And compound sentence, it has two clauses and both the clause will be principal clause, and these clauses will be combined with the use of coordinating conjunctions and, but, or, yet, otherwise, and so, and therefore, etc. And simple sentence, it has a no conjunction. It contains no conjunction. Sometimes the question setter or you or I can use linkers, just like because of, owing to, due to, with a view to, in spite of, despite, or present participle, etc. These are the linkers. Now, dears, look at the sentences, please. Yes, they were poor, they needed help. As they were poor, they needed help. Since the man played well, he became winner. Whenever you ask a complex sentence to compound or simple, then you should be careful about which conjunction is used to make a complex sentence. Okay? And after complex and after the connector or conjunction, the clause is subordinate clause because it is not able to express the meaning of the full sentence without the help of it. It is the principal clause and it is principal. Meaning of as or since, যেহেতু, as এবং since এর অর্থ হচ্ছে যেহেতু. So after as or since, the clause, the subordinate clause will express the meaning of cause, কারণ. For what? For the principle needed help. Why? They were poor. It is the cause for the principal clause. They needed help. For the first clause, they needed help. It can express the full meaning. But if you or I don't use this clause, yes, they were poor, then you may consider myself. If I just write this sentence and go away, yes, they were poor, I have not used this clause, then you may consider that our honorable sir may be a match. No. Then sir will use this clause. And the clause, the two clauses are joined with the use of as, and this clause will express the meaning of cause of principal clause. Principal clause এর কারণ প্রকাশ করবে হচ্ছে subordinate clause, and এই subordinate clause টা আমার principal clause এর কারণ. This subordinate clause is the cause of principal clause. Since you have identified the complex sentence with the use of since or as, and subordinate clause expresses the cause of the principal clause. You have identified. Now you should identify if the subject of both the clauses are same or different. You should identify it. You know, you have noticed that in the subordinate clause I have used there as subject and principal clause also. So The subject of both the clauses are same. You have noticed it. First, you have noticed how the complex sentence has been written. I have written the complex sentence, or I have made the complex sentence with the use of as. And all of you know that after as, the subordinate clause will express the cause of the principal clause. That means it is the cause and it is the action. It is the cause and it is the action. And both the clauses contains same subject. Okay? If you are asked to transform it, what will you do? Just like the question setter or I have asked you to transform it into compound sentence. Compound sentence has also two clauses. And I have told you, you should not use any subordinate clause in compound sentence. Okay? Dears, but I have told you, this clause is subordinate clause. How can I give it the strength of a principal clause? I can give it the strength of a principal clause. How? Look at the board. They were poor. They needed help. Now, I should give the power of principal clause. And I will use it at the very beginning of the compound sentence. Just like you should remember, whenever you or your younger brother or sister go on March 1st, on 26th March, 21st February or 16th December, as a student you may participate on March 1st. Then, what is the rule of arranging a line? You should keep your younger brother in front of you. He is small. As you are a tall boy, you will stand after your younger brother because you are tall. Then he will go first, then you. But if you stand in front of the line and the smallest boys are behind you, then what will happen? Will it be a march past? No. You may go, but your younger brother or sister will run after you. Then it will not be a march past. Then you are giving the strength of a principal clause, of a subordinate clause about a principal clause. Then you are making a position from small to tall. Then I will put the subordinate clause at the very beginning of the principal clause. Then it will act like a principal clause. Just like this. First you should write the cause. You will erase as. Then you should write the subordinate clause. That means the action of this clause will be held first. They don't need help. First they should be poor. They will be poor. Then they need help. So the action of the clause that will be occurred first, then it will be at the very beginning of a compound sentence. The action that has done first in a compound sentence, it will be put in the first position. Now dears, I will write they were poor. They were poor. It is the cause, but it was the subordinate clause. Now I have used it at the first position, at the beginning of the sentence. Now it has got the strength of a principal clause. Then I will use and at the place of comma in lieu of as. They were poor and. If the subject are the same, then you need not to use subject here. They were poor and needed help. And needed help. They were poor and needed help. So, when any complex sentence is combined with the use of and, then to transform it into compound, you need to use and as connector to make it a compound sentence. And first you should write the cause and then the action. Always in compound sentence, first you should write the cause and then the action. And if the subjects are the same, then you need not to use the subject for the second time after and. But you can say, sir, I will use the subject again. Then what will you do? Then they were poor and you need to use so and so or and therefore. If you use and so or and therefore, you must use the subject. They were poor and so they needed help. And so they needed help. After and, you should not use the subject. But after, if you combine the compound sentence with the use of and so or and therefore, then you must use the subject again. Okay? Look at the second sentence. I have erased since. The cause is it. I will write it first. The man played oil. The man played oil. Erase the punctuation mark and use and in lieu of since. The man played oil and you can identify I have used he as a subject in the principal clause, but the person is the same. So you need not to use the subject again. And became winner. And became winner. The man played oil and became winner. You need not to use the subject here again because both the subject of both clauses are same. But if you want to use the subject here, then you should use and so. If you use and so, then you should use he again. You should. The man played oil and so he became winner. Okay? Now, what was the structure of complex sentence, dears? As or since. Since, then subject, finite verb and object. Subject, finite verb on object. As and since can also be used at the middle of the sentence. Just like this. Look at the board please again. They own the match. They own the match. It is the principal clause because it can express the full meaning. As they played oil. You can notice that here I have used as at the middle of the sentence. Okay? And the last clause after as, the clause which I have used is expressing the cause of the principal clause. Now, if you are asked to change it into compound sentence, you cannot use the subordinate clause as the last part of the sentence. You should take it at the very beginning of the sentence because you need to give the strength of an independent clause in a subordinate clause. Okay? Then you should put it at the very beginning of the sentence. But if you find a pronoun here and the noun here, you should use the first subject here. But both the subject are in pronominal form. So I will use they played well and won the match. Okay, dears? Now, this since or as can be used at the middle, then the subordinate clause will be at the last part of the sentence. How can you? It is complex sentence, and if you ask to transform it into compound, what will you do? You will use the subordinate clause here. That means it is the cause. It is the cause, subordinate clause. That means full clause, subject, finite verb and object. Then you will use a connector, and the connector is and. If you use and, then you only use the finite verb and object of principal clause. Okay? But if you use and so or and therefore, what will you do? You should write the full clause. Subject, finite verb and object. It is the result. It is the result. It is the action for the first clause. Now, dears, if I ask you to transform it into a simple sentence, what will you do? A simple sentence. They won the match as they played well. The man played well. Sorry, the sentence is not a complex sentence. As they played well, they won the match. Dears, I have written two sentences. In first sentence, I have used the conjunction or connector at the middle of the sentence. But in second sentence, I have used the connector at the very beginning of the sentence. There may be scenes also. And you have noticed both the subjects are the same. Now, if you are asked to transform it into a simple sentence, what will you do? All of you know that in a simple sentence, you can use only one principal clause, but there are two clauses. What will be about another clause? How can you use the another clause? You have no ability to change the principal clause. You have no ability. I have no ability to change, to take a hand on principal clause, but I have the ability to change the subordinate clause. And which is the subordinate clause? After the connector, it is the subordinate clause. It is the subordinate clause. I have the ability, I have strength to change this, but I have no power to change the principal clause. Okay? If I try to revoke anyone which is like me, in physically, mentally, he is like me. If I revoke him, he will revoke me. Then there will be a collision. But if I want to revoke anyone from whom I have no fear to take to get any reaction, he will be smaller. He will be weaker than me. Okay? This subordinate clause is weaker. This subordinate is weaker. So I have the ability to change it. Okay? Now, dears, look at the sentence. You or I have no ability to change the principal clause. I will write the principal clause. They own the match. You have noticed that I have written the full principal clause without making any kind of change. But I have no ability to use two clauses in a simple sentence. Then what will be the result of subordinate clause. How can I use this clause? I should not use this as a clause. I will make it a phrase. And all of you know that a phrase has no subject, no finite verb. Okay? Then, as both the subjects are the same, I will erase as and then the subject also. But I have no ability to erase the verb. But I have no ability to use the verb as a verb form. So what can I do? I should make it a participle, present participle. I will erase the past form and take the basic form of the verb play. And I will use ing, playing oil. They own the match, playing oil. You may use this playing oil at the very beginning of the sentence, just like this. Playing oil. You should use the punctuation mark, comma, playing oil. Then you should write, they own the match. You may use a linker here. They own the match because of playing oil. They own the match owing to playing oil. They own the match due to playing oil. And all the linkers will express the same meaning. Just like I am writing here, as you will erase as, you may use because of, or owing to, or due to as linkers. Because of, owing to, or due to, then you will erase the subject. And you can use the present participle form of the verb. Because of playing oil, they own the match. Because of playing oil, they own the match. It is another rule. First, I have used only the ing form, that means present participle form of a verb. I have not used any kind of linker here. In the second sentence, I have used because of, owing to, or due to as linker, and after that I have used the ing form of the verb. That was in the subordinate clause. You can also change it. How? Sir, I will use the subject. But you have no power, I have no ability to use this subject as subjective form. I may use, how? I may use this subject by changing its pronominal form. It is in subjective form. I may use it as possessive form. How? Due to, or owing to, or because of, due to their playing oil. Due to their playing oil, they own the match. Dear students, you can notice that in the first sentence I have used only the ing form of the verb. That was in the subordinate clause. But in second sentence, I have used three linkers because of, owing to, due to, and after that I have used the ing form, that means present participle form of the verb. That was in the subordinate clause. In the third rule, I have used the possessive form of the subject, subjective form. They are playing oil. Okay? So, what is the structure of simple sentence? I think all of you have written the structure of the, when I have given the instruction of changing or transforming the complex sentence into compound. Then now I am just writing the structure of the simple sentence. You may start the sentence with the use of ing form of the verb and then object. Or you can use the linkers because of, or owing to, or then the ing form of the verb that will be given on subordinate clause and then object. You may use the possessive form of the subject, possessive, jo ing form and then object. Then you should write all these three things can be done in a simple sentence, and then you should write the clause, subject, finite verb and object. It is principal clause. Okay. Now dears, I am going to give you some sentences. They were invited, they attended the party. At the same time, I am transforming this complex sentence into compound and simple. First simple, I will erase since, as both the subjects are same. I will erase the subject. I can use ing form of the principal of the verb. You know, where is be verb. Where is be verb. I cannot use ing, aiming, easing, aring, wiring. No. Where is be verb. So I will use being invited. Being invited. You will write the principal clause. They attended the party. They attended the party. Okay? You can also use because of being invited. Because of being invited. Due to being invited. It is simple sentence. And if I want to transform this complex sentence into compound, what can I do? I will use the subordinate clause first. I will erase since. They were invited. They were invited. I will erase the punctuation mark and will use and if the subject are same. I will not use the subject again. And attended the party. Attended the party. Okay? You can also use and so or and therefore in lieu of and. Then you must use the subject here. If you use they were invited and so they attended the party. Okay? Now dears, the rules that I have given, the subject in both clauses was the same. Okay? Now, as he was honest, we respected him. As he was honest, we respected him. Dear learners, look at the board. What is the difference between the given sentence and the sentences that I gave you? First, here the subject, I have used he for the first subject for the subordinate clause, but for the simple clause, principal clause, here I have used we. So subjects are different. Now, if you are asked to transform it into compound sentence, first I am going to write the structure of the complex sentence. I have used as for since, Then subject 1, finite verb object, punctuation mark, subject 2, finite verb and object. I have not used the same subject for the two clauses. The subjects are different. So, if I am asked by anyone to transform it into a compound sentence, I cannot change the subject. I will erase S. And first I will write the cause. Why we respected them? Why? It is the cause. And it was held first. It is the cause of the principal clause. So, I have told you whenever I gave you the instruction of the first rule, the first action will be put first whenever you are asked to transform it into a compound sentence. He was honest. He was honest. Now, in lieu of yes, you can use and. You may also use and so or and therefore. Then you should use the full clause, full principal clause. You need not to erase the subject. You cannot erase the subject because both the subjects are different. He was honest and so we respected him. We respected him. If the clause is at the last part of the sentence and yes is at the middle of the sentence, whenever you are asked to transform it into compound sentence, you should take the subordinate clause and write it at the very beginning of the sentence. He was honest and so and therefore we respected him. You cannot write we respected him and he was honest. For your respect, he was not honest. For our respect, he was not honest. For his honesty, we respected him. Okay? So, this action was held first and then that action. In compound sentence, the first action will be in the first place and then the second action. So, what have I done for compound sentence? I have used the subordinate clause first, subordinate clause. That means subject, finite verb and object, and it will express the cause. Then I will use and or and so or and therefore. Therefore, then you should write the principal clause. That means full principal clause, subject, finite verb and object. There you can clearly notice that I have not changed the subordinate clause and principal clause. Just I have erased the conjunction and in lieu of s, I have used and so and therefore at the middle of the compound sentence. Okay? Now, if you are asked to change it into simple sentence, what will you do? Whenever the subjects were the same, then I have erased the subject. It is the clause and it is the clause. It is principal clause and it is subordinate clause. Now, how can you transform it into a simple sentence? Dear students, look at the board very much carefully. I will erase the connector. I will erase the conjunction. And at the place of s, I can use because of. Because of. I have no ability to erase the subject. But I have no ability to use the subject here again as subjective form. I have no ability to avoid the subject. But I have no ability to use this subject as subjective form. Then what can I do? I will make the possessive form of the subjective form. Then what is the possessive form of he? Because of his. Because of his. Then I will write the ing form of the finite verb. What is the finite verb? Was. But I cannot write wasing. I cannot write ising. And in the first rule, I have told you that am, is, are, was, were, all are be verb. I can use ing form of be because of his being honest. Because of his being honest. This is not a clause now. It is a phrase. It has no subject, no finite verb. Because I cannot identify the tense. Okay? Because of his being honest, we respected him. Dear students, you can clearly notice that I have not changed the principal clause. I have not changed the principal clause. You can also write because of his, you need not to use the verb. It is, honest is an adjective. You can write the noun form of honest, because after possessive form, you should use the noun form of any word. Because of his honesty. Because of his honesty. Then you should write the principal clause. We respected him. I can identify the tense from the principal clause, but not from the first part of the sentence, because it is a phrase. It is not a clause. Now, dears, today I have given you the instruction to change the complex sentence which are combined with since or as, and if the subject is same or if the subjects are different. The next day I will give you the information about transforming on another rules also. Till then, I think or I hope all of you will be safe and sound, and all of you will stay at home. I pray to Almighty to keep you safe. Okay? Thank you very much.